usually part A. They're explained in nature. A lot of it is rehearsed, prepared beforehand. Okay? And I like to think of the answer through a certain approach, which is how many diagrams, how many paragraphs. Okay? If you can get down to that granularity, I think that's good. So how the price mechanism works, there's typically 3 parts. I'm not considering the introduction, okay? There are 3 parts plus 1 diagram. Okay. When they ask you how rational consumers and producers make decisions, okay? If I make this question a bit longer, that 8 resource allocation, which means I'm opening up this question to its maximum bandwidth, okay? Then I'll say you have 3 parts and you have 3 diagrams. Okay. Aside from these 2, I will struggle to think of another question that can be posed as asking you how the free market works. Okay. And why I say that is because, okay, if you look at how we define a free market, okay, defining features of a free market, it uses the price signal, all right, and it's driven by self-interest. So there isn't a third dimension because these 2 are the same, and then these 2 are the same. Okay, same. Okay, so given the 2 different iterations, let me just very quickly tell you what's the answer plan. Okay, pace-wise, okay. So if a question were to ask you how the price mechanism works, the 3 parts here are, number 1, you have to explain how the price mechanism answers the first question, what and how much to produce. Okay. Then you have to explain how it answers the second question, how to produce. And the third one is how it answers the question of for who to produce. Okay. So when you talk about resource allocation, which is finding an answer to the problem of scarcity, you have 3 basic questions to answer, and here they are. What and how much, how, for whom. Okay. So where is the diagram? The diagram is hiding here. There is no diagram when it comes to how to produce. There isn't a diagram when it comes to for whom to produce. Okay. So 3 parts, 1 diagram. Let me just go a little bit more, all right? Because you're explaining how the price mechanism works. So we should try to bring in the signaling effect. I always cannot remember. Is there a double L for signaling? Some say yes, some say no. Huh? Yeah. Double double. Okay. Double L. Okay. Signaling, and then there's also an incentive effect. There is also a rationing effect. Have you seen these terms before? Huh? Signaling, incentive, rationing. Never. Unheard of.
Well, it's in the
first book. It's been a while, right? You covered this in year 1. Okay, so signaling effect, incentive effect, and rationing effect. Let me explain each one of them from this structure. Okay, see, the focus is placed here on the price mechanism. That's why we have to bring these things in. When the focus is placed on rational decision making, by right, they're all explaining how the free market works, but the emphasis is a bit different. Okay, but don't worry about this first. Let's go through this first. Okay. So when you explain what and how much to produce, okay, usually you will draw a diagram to show, let's say you have a shortage. Okay. Demand and supply diagram. Then from here, we're going to say at original price P1, see, at P1, now we see a shortage. Okay. So we are just creating an arbitrary shift in demand curve. Okay. You can give an example. If people become more affluent, they want to buy more cars, demand goes up. Okay. So you have a shortage, which puts upward pressure on price. And it's not very hard because the moment there's upward pressure on price, this is your signaling effect. The light has come on, it's blinking, right? Follow?
Wait, Q1, Q2 is shortage.
The shortage is actually from here. Yeah, at the original price, quantity demanded versus the quantity supplied. That's the size of your shortage. Can you all see? Okay. And when the price goes up, profit-driven producers will produce more. Use the correct language, don't say increase supply. When you increase the supply, you're shifting the supply curve. But this is not what is happening, right? While consumers seeking to maximize satisfaction, okay, will consume cheaper substitutes instead. So there's a fall in quantity demanded. This is the closest you get to talking about self-interest. Okay? So historically, when we talk about self-interest, it's always embedded in this paragraph. Okay? But later I'll show you how the question is different when they ask about rational decision. This thing is magnified. Until the new equilibrium is reached, there's no tendency for further change. What you have described here is the incentive effect. What incentivizes producers and consumers? Okay, what gets them to wake up and start taking action? It's the change in price. Okay. Any questions? Okay, this is I said there are three parts, there's one diagram. So we've gotten rid of one part and one diagram. The other two parts are quite short. If there's anything you're not sure of, let me know, okay? Any questions? Good. Then the next thing that happens is when you talk about for whom to produce, okay? From this diagram, you can see that the good, okay, is actually distributed to those who are willing and able to pay. Because that's how we define the demand curve. It's an effective demand curve. It's not a desire curve. If you are willing to pay, but you're not able to pay, it's not effective demand. Okay, so that is your rationing effect. Okay, so I've just brought in the signaling, incentive, as well as the rationing effect. Sure. I just put it here. Any questions? Then there's one last part here, which is how to produce.